should Florida State fans, I'm asking your opinion here, be nervous, or are the guys that have announced that they're leaving? And we'll tackle these. We can go one by one if you want, or you can just go big picture and you can go down the line. I know one of them leaving is less about leaving and more about being told to have a good day after an arrest. The rest of these guys are choosing to enter into the portal. Does this draw some concern from you, or are you saying, this seems about right, what we were expecting in terms of teams, players being weeded out of here?
Yeah, overall, I think it's about right. I think we need to come up with a system, though, like 1 alarm, 2 alarm, 3 alarm, 4 alarm, or something, some sort of code.
Okay.
Classify these guys because, yeah, I mean, TJ Ferguson is a guy you'd rather stay on your roster. You're going to need somebody like him. You're going to need somebody who's, played college football, can be a backup offensive lineman. You wouldn't feel like it's the end of the world if he has to go in there, but he's also not a guy where, you feel like, oh no, what are we going to do now? Aaron Hester was a guy that also went in the portal today, defensive end, that I think was a guy that, there was some hope maybe last year that he would be maybe a situational pass rusher that could help a little bit. But I think the change in scheme probably did him in. He's 6'2", 240 pounds. I'm not really sure where that lines up without great athletic ability, where that lines up in this defensive system. So there's some things like that. Hakeem Williams is the guy you'd probably rather have on your team than not have on your team because there's potential there, but it's also not like a game breaker. So, I think for the most part, knock on wood, I think they've dodged any of the 3 or 4 alarm losses, but you do have to have depth pieces, and they're losing some of them.
I think they got to be angry with the situation regarding Jaylen Brown. You could tell that Mike really wanted him to turn the corner and get it right, probably because they don't have a ton of speed, game-breaking speed, and he does possess that. Now, again, he hadn't done much here at all, and it was the hope that this spring you'd see him take a step forward, but alas, it doesn't happen. He's arrested and dismissed summarily. Does that one, in your mind, hurt this core, and does that mean that Florida State now has to go out and get a receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I think the combination of those two for sure. You at least need to go get one, probably need to get 2 receivers, depending on what's happening with the rest of that group. But, Jaylen Brown's an unfortunate one because, to your point, it was like a week or 2 ago, FSU had FSU Day at the Capitol, and they sent 3 or 4 players over there, and Jaylen Brown's one of them, that he was over there with, some of the other players doing the good community gestures and all that. And I think they were hoping that he would be part of, the future of the program. But my guess is how quickly that dismissal came following the arrest. My guess is it was not his first strike. And so, they're moving on because other guys have been arrested in the past and not been dismissed that quickly. So, that's a loss because of the speed. Again, it's a guy that, somebody asked on the message boards, why did Mike Norvell let him stay around past last season? Because there were some concerns last season. I'm like, yeah, well, he runs fast.
Yeah.
The guys that run fast get more chances than the guys that don't run fast. So, that's a loss. And, yeah, they're definitely going to have to pick up 1 or 2 receivers.
I always love boiling it down to its essence, right? There you go, Ira. That's the best way to describe it. It's always been that way for every coach at every level. Oh, my starting tailback was just arrested for assault. Why haven't my team, in place your team here, why haven't they let him go? Well, he rushed for 1,700 yards last year is why they have not let him go. That's exactly why. Frustration. Florida State fans feel like, I think right about now, until we start hearing names that they're bringing in, that there's just not enough quality players here and not enough depth. I'd say that's probably pretty accurate if your expectation is anything close to a 9 or 10 win season. However, we don't know that this is the end. I mean, there will probably, what do you think, a couple more players will enter, and how many will they, do you think, bring in?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I thought the number, last week we talked about it on headlines, and I think I said the number of guys leaving was probably 6 or 7, maybe in that ballpark, and now we're already there.
Yeah.
I think they're at 7 already. So it's going to go well over that number, I think. And, part of it is, listen, man, it's the end of the spring. We know what's happening. It's happening at Florida State. It's happening on a lot of campuses. You have renegotiations going on and players who are saying, okay, well, now this is what I want to stay. And then the school can say, yes, that's something we're willing to part with, or we're not. And so, you really, I don't know if anything's set in stone until the portal is closed. For example, typically at the end of spring practice, and unfortunately spring practice is over after what happened last Thursday, usually we would start rolling out pieces on okay, this is what this position looks like now. This is what this position looks like now that we've seen a spring. You can't do that right now because this portal you have to get through this portal. So we really don't know for sure, and how many they add will likely to be dependent on how many they lose. But the answer to that could come much later because the portal closes for people going in, but FSU could be signing players for another month or more. So, you're not going to get the other side of it probably as quickly as fans want to see, but rest assured, there are players out there. Florida State will get players. Maybe, we'll see if they can get the kind of players that FSU fans want or not.
So let's go back to something you just said there. That's confirmation of something I wondered aloud on to start the show. They are not going to try to make up the days lost due to the tragedy?
No, from everything I've told, they're not. Yeah, they basically that was the end of spring football. Yeah.
That's tough because one of those, if I'm not mistaken, might have been scrimmage-esque, right?
Yeah, so there was one helmets-only practice, no pads. So that was going to be, it's not the end of the world to lose that. But, yeah, they were supposed to scrimmage on Saturday. And from what I was told, that it was shut down. So, there's no good decisions in some of these.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those unfortunate things, honestly. And you hate to even talk about this because of, the tragedy. But, it also hurt them in recruiting because this was going to be a big weekend where a lot of recruits were coming onto campus. And a lot of those visits all got canceled as well. So now, obviously, that's not anywhere on the list of concerns after something like that. But, for the fan base, for the football people that care about Florida State football and will care about them 2 or 3 months from now, those visits could have been important in terms of setting up official visits in the next step of the process.
Let's take a breath and you tell me everything there is to know about all of these players that are now going to be playing basketball for Florida State. Because every day I look up, I see you're announcing somebody new. Luke Laux has done some serious filling here as of late. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but the sense I'm getting is he's not half-stepping when it comes to guys that he wants to bring in here, and that is guys that can freaking shoot.
There's definitely an emphasis on being able to shoot the basketball.
Yes.
I think most people would be fine with. Listen, I think he's done a really nice job. It's no secret. You've talked about it. We've all talked about it. Florida State is not, and Luke talked about it, his introductory press conference. Maybe the first time in the history of introductory press conferences, a head coach said, "I'm not trying to get the top NIL guys."
Yeah.
He's like, "Look, we're not." So, they've done a really nice job. They picked up a lot of nice pieces. I think Robert McCray from Jacksonville University scored 16, 18 points a game the last 2 years. I really like the Steen kid at Florida Southern, a Division II player.
Yep.
6'8", 245. The LeJay Jones from St. Bonaventure. They've got some really nice pieces they're bringing in. Now, again, if you look at some of the other schools around the country, the Kentuckys, the Indianas, the BYUs, they're getting a different level of player. But I do think what you see is that Luke is bringing in players that should fit his system. He wants to play a very up and down style. He wants to get after it. He wants to shoot the three. And so, he's made no qualms about it. His 3 favorite shots are the 3-pointer, the layup, or a shot at the rim and a free throw. Well, these are guys that can do that. They've got some guys who can slash. They've got some guys who can shoot the three, and they've got guys who can shoot it all, which is what you want to see at the free throw line. So I think he's going to have a good roster for he's got 10 players now. I think it's going to be a good roster for what he plans to do. But again, I don't know what the ceiling is because again, he's not fishing from the same pond that where Florida State was fishing from 5 or 6 years ago.